Okay, so welcome to Advanced Topics in Networking. My name is Nimal. Um, some of you may know me through the um, research project meetings and stuff. Uh, but just as a short introduction, I used to um, teach at the faculty. No longer there, but uh, but I'm still teaching, I suppose. And also, I work in cybersecurity. So I no longer teach in my day job anymore. So I work in cybersecurity. So that's my day job. Um, and uh, um, and I teach a couple of subjects at the faculty like this. So let's get going. And the nature of this subject is going to be very, like somewhat discussion oriented and somewhat participatory if possible. We'll see how things go. And towards the end of today's session, we'll also discuss some of the other course admin matters as well. But we'll go through a bit of introduction today and talk about some of the key sort of topic areas or interesting topic areas that we may cover later in the course, and then some admin matters. So it may not be a long lecture today. So this comes from a Gartner report, like an industry report about talking about some of the strategic technology trends or some of the technologies that are sort of going to shape up in the coming years, so to speak. AI is a main player factor word in this, which we all know because that's something that we talk about a lot. Then there's quite a lot of focus and interest around security, but also a lot around sort of various types of computing sort of innovations as well. But if we sort of look further, particularly into sort of networking, which the area which you are specializing in, and this report is from last year and talking about some of the networking trends. Again, we are seeing significant sort of advancements or adoptions of various newer technologies in organizations. So a lot of sort of centralized management kind of things. So these are some of the things you would have already seen in some of your internships, training places as well. A lot of unification of sort of different modes of computing, different modes of connectivity, and as with anything, a lot of AI enablement as well within these environments. So with that, the main thing or main takeaway from these couple of slides is that a lot of things are changing and a lot of things will keep on changing. So, and that's one of the core focuses of this module of this course. Because a lot of the things that you study in the university in your 4 years at the university, a lot of those things will change very quickly as soon as you get out. Some of those things would have already changed before you leave the university. That was the case for me, and that would be the case for you all as well. For example, like 15 years ago when I finished university, there were certain things that we studied, there were certain things that we were thinking of going and doing when we came out of the university. But a lot of those things have changed significantly. A lot of us don't do those things that we studied. We do various other things. So this course is mainly introduction or like introducing sort of different areas, introducing different sort of topic areas, technology areas that could be relevant when you go out of the university. So I think that's the main focus here. So it's not particularly talking or studying about one thing. It's mainly studying or being prepared to do anything that will come about your way. So one of the reasons why networking plays a bigger role in all of these things that we have looked at previously is that all of these things are dependent on various forms of connectivity. So there's a lot of connectivity within these systems. So for example, if we take an AI enabled system or just AI as an example, any AI for that matter, LLMs or whatever, there's a significant component of networking involved in that, in building that environment, in building those systems. And then how we reach, how end users access those systems, then again, there's a whole bunch of networking involved in that as well. So that is where networking comes into play, and a lot of the advancements that are coming about in networking again will come into play there as well. Then another aspect is like most businesses would need and would continue to need more and more networking or network connected sort of business operations. So it could be simple as like being able to receive payments or whole supply chains, logistics, and everything related to a business being interconnected through networking. So again, there could be a number of different networking technologies that could be relevant in those areas as well. Then another aspect of networking that would be very important and would be significantly more and more important would be security. Because again, for us to provide better security to an organization, better security to an environment, understanding the underlying networking would become very important, because again, networks become one of the easiest and one of the most common entryways into an organization, into an environment. And that's how the threat actors are going to come in. And that's what we need to try to block off as well. So to do that, we need to have a good understanding of the technology, underlying technologies, or the networking technologies that we use there. And finally, sort of all these networking technologies, what is going to enable the interconnected nature of how we operate in today's sort of technology landscape. So this is about people connecting with devices, people connecting with services, then services talking to each other, and all the different permutations and combinations they're about. So that is to say, like, there's a lot of different reasons why networking is a significant pillar of the computing environment that we live in. Even with all these different advancements and emerging technologies and different new things coming about, networking and the underlying networking layer is going to play and continue to play a significant role in the way things work in the world. So that's where this is important, and that is why we are sort of going to look at few different emerging areas around networking in this series of lectures. So as a sort of summarizing sort of objective for this course, I would say it's two main things. One is for understanding advanced networking concepts. So this is understanding sort of different cutting edge technologies and different networking methodologies, and having a good theoretical and practical foundation, so that any new things that come about, you will have the foundation to go and learn about those things and apply those things. And then the second area would be around what you would do when you go into the industry, when you start working, or when you go into research, or any of your sort of future careers. So it could be in networking, it could be in cybersecurity. How could you be prepared for your studies, research, and work? So again, like if I think about some of the examples from my personal circumstances, uh, like when I finished my studies, as I said, about 15 years ago, cybersecurity, cybersecurity was always a thing, but it was not commonly called cybersecurity. Uh, we were about computer security. The terms commonly used were computer security or information security. But the things that the fundamental concepts and the theories and the technologies that we studied are the building blocks of the things that came about later on. So having a good understanding of what was there was useful and necessary to learn about the things that came about later. So again, that's what we will do in this course as well. We will learn about some of the things that are now and maybe some of the things that are coming about. But then later on, it would be you who would be studying and learning and exploring the newer things that come about later on. So this would be more about building the foundations that are necessary. And then we go and build the building, so to speak, later on. So as what sort of key topics that we would cover in this course, again, it would be very sort of wide ranging topics. Uh, we would have a significant focus on networking, but also a significant focus on security together with that. So we would talk about sort of network control planes, SDNs, cloud network operations. Then we would also talk about security aspects around sort of operational security, identity security, and sort of few other different areas as well. And one of the good things about this course is that we don't have to stick to any of these things. So as we go through the course, I may bring in different topics. And if you have any sort of topics or areas that you would like to explore, you are keen on, just let me know. And like we can be very flexible on what we discuss in this course, because essentially it doesn't have a particular structure that we need to follow here. So before we move forward, any questions so far on the things that we discussed? And again, one more thing here, that is like if you have any questions, you can always post on the chat if that's easier. You can ask in person as well, like as an unmute and ask. Always welcome to do that. So that's sort of the expectation of how we would like to have this lecture go. But we'll see how participation happens in the coming weeks. All right. So have anyone heard about Salt Typhoon? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Any reactions? No. So Salt Typhoon is a Chinese state-sponsored cyber espionage group. And in the past, early this year, it was identified that they have infiltrated a significant number of telecom infrastructure in many countries. So it's not just any particular country, like US, Australia, Japan, a lot of European countries as well. And this was particularly through targeting routers, a lot of edge devices, and so on. And in most cases, this is not a single type of device that got compromised. It was like a large number of various devices from large number of vendors like Cisco, Palo Alto. So it's not a single vendor thing, single vulnerability thing, but it's more about a coordinated sort of long-term attack or event, so to speak, that has probably would have happened for months to years. So it's not a quick thing. But the main thing to understand here is like when underlying network infrastructure gets compromised, the security of that compromises everything that happens beyond that or above that networking infrastructure. So it's still, so there are a lot of speculations around what those things could have been, what type of information would have been like sort of exfiltrated, leaked, and so on. But the main thing is this is an infrastructure level thing. So this is sort of a lot of networking level things rather than application level things. So this is where the crucial aspect of networking becomes apparent, because it's not just how secure the applications and systems that we build, it's also how secure the underlying infrastructure level networking that we have, even sort of telecom level networking or any sort of networking for that matter. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. That is, even when we talk about all these different new fancy technologies and things, AI for that matter, gets talked a lot about these days, the underlying network infrastructure is still the same, so to speak. Say, for example, I said like there have a lot of things that I studied in university are no longer sort of active or valid or prominent these days. But one of the things that's still pretty much the same is networking. I mean, like we were still talking about IPv6 might be a thing when we were sort of finishing university. It's still sort of maybe a thing because we still are largely on IPv4 in many environments. So things move significantly slowly. There are a lot of changes as well, but there are also a lot of things that are still the same. A lot of the Cisco routers and stuff that I have studied when I was in university are still the same. The way that you configure them, the way you secure them, the way you use them, a lot of those things are still the same. But at the same time, there are certain other additional things that have come about in the years. And so that is to say, like networking infrastructure sort of in a way sort of stays same or is always there and changes slowly. Yeah, that's one of the things to keep in mind as well. So with that in mind, or with this in mind, let's talk about some interesting incidents that have happened in recent this year, mainly data breaches. And we'll see like some of these data breaches are mostly like application layer or like software related, so to speak. But then there are some of these incidents that are networking infrastructure related as well. So we'll see some of these. So when we think about organizations, infrastructures, environments, it's not always software, but it's also the infrastructure that facilitates these things to function. And that's one of the things that we need to have a focus on as well. So one of the recent ones this year, or like one of the more prominent ones this year in terms of data breaches or attacks, was the supply chain attack around Salesforce and some of their vendors within Salesforce. So it sort of started as a token exploitation, so to speak. So Salesforce has a lot of other vendors that operate within that and within their environment as sort of plugins, so to speak. And the issue that happened was two of their vendors, Salesloft and Drift, had their authentication tokens stolen from different places, one from GitHub and the other from AWS. But the interesting or the problematic thing was that these things are used very heavily across the industry. There's a lot of organizations that use, including large organizations like Google and Cloudflare, to small organizations as well, like including some of the organizations that I am sort of connected to. The main thing to sort of see here is this is not particularly a networking related issue, but it's an authentication security related issue. So one of the things that get compromised is something that belongs to a vendor, and we keep trusting these vendors, suppliers, so that's hence the name supply chain attacks. And when we have these type of third-party integrations, how do we control any sort of breaches that may come about through them? So that's sort of the main interesting point here, because this is an example of a supply chain attack, but there have been a significant number of different supply chain attacks in the last number of years. Even there were a few others this year as well, in addition to the Salesforce one. So one of the particularly impacted one within this Salesforce set of different Salesforce breaches was one around Google. And in this case, there was an additional aspect of human error and some phishing scams as well, or like being compromised through phishing emails. So social engineering becomes a key aspect when we talk about security in these areas. Then another one, again, continuing with the Salesforce. This is again a Salesforce one. The reason why I included this one was I am part of one of the customers in this data breach. So I mean, like, it has not a lot of information, but like emails, names, date of birth. So I think those are my information that got breached in this particular attack. But then again, if I count all the different data breaches that have happened with my personal data in the past 5 years, pretty much anything about me is somewhere in the dark web in different databases, because like there's many different vendors or systems, websites with my data has been compromised over the years. So like there's nothing private, so to speak, anymore. Yeah, this is a slightly different one. It's a different attack. But this one is particularly, again, like a backend system for a telco. Again, I was a customer in this one as well. Again, quite a lot of personal data that got exposed through this. This one is the Juniper router attack is a particularly network specific attack, because this was particularly affecting the routers from one specific vendor and the operating system of that router. So this is the level that we need to think about when, particularly from a networking point of view. Because when we think about networks are sort of, there's physical networks, and then there's a lot of these control devices that we have, routers and switches. But all of these devices, at the end of the day, have some level of software, and by nature of software, all of them will have some bugs and vulnerabilities, possibly vulnerabilities. So that's one of the most common sort of considerations or concerns that we will have when we think about networks, is that identifying the potential for any of these things having vulnerabilities, and what are sort of the measures that we take to protect our networks if those things get compromised. So do we have monitoring capabilities of sort of when things go wrong? Do we have any monitoring capabilities for abnormal behaviors? So these are some of the things that we will start thinking about when we think about sort of more advanced networks and more enterprise level environments. So now, when we think about uh, sort of different technologies and the different types of technologies that are sort of transforming uh, what is coming about in the few years. There's always these type of predictions. Some of these things would come true. Some of these things may not pan out as expected. Uh, so there are certain things that's already happening or already started to happen. So like a lot of AI related stuff is sort of starting to uh, happen a lot. Say if I again go back about 10 years ago, a lot of the AI stuff was like a bit further in the future. So now we are there. And then there are a lot of um, things that we assume or we expect to happen in the next 10 years. Some of those things may happen and some of those things may not pan out as expected. But if you look at any of these sort of topic areas, one of the things that you would notice is that almost all of these things are network dependent. None of these things are going to be like sort of independent standalone systems. Some of them may be, say for, but they would still have some aspect of networking for them to be functional or um, the way that they would work. There would be a significant dependency on networking. So with that, so this is thinking about all the different technologies that are coming about or potentially coming about. If we go and think about enterprise networks, then even within that, there are a lot of predictions about what could be the next thing or what could be um, the sort of emerging future around those things. So some of the things that is sort of starting to take place around, say, agentic NetOps or Wi-Fi 8. So these are things that are coming about almost. Then there are certain things like 6G that's too far ahead in terms of a discussion point, but it's still already the discussion has started, but it may not happen for the next 5, even 10 years. So that's the other thing to remember as well. Not all the things that we look in this context may pan out in the future as we expect, but it's good to have an understanding and foundation about the things that we have now and we potentially expect to have in the future, and then that will take us to the next step, so to speak. So let's go through some of the interesting ones in this and see what they are. Uh, Again, like we may not uh, we can't go into too in depth into any of these topics because that's not the focus today. But some of these things we will revisit later in different lectures in the series, and some of those things are for your own interest or spark your own interest, I suppose. So one of the interesting ones that is coming about within sort of wireless networking, and that we would come across more, most of us would come across in the future, is the transition or evolution into Wi-Fi 8. Many of us are still not on Wi-Fi 7, so for that matter, a lot of us are still on like Wi-Fi 5 and 6, and sometimes even other previous technologies, and those work fine. There's nothing particularly wrong in a personal context or individual context. But From an enterprise context, there are significant advantages that we gain through some of these newer evolutions of Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi 8 would be one of those evolutions as well. So one of the things that we always get with newer evolutions of Wi-Fi is like more higher throughput of or the speed, so to speak. But then also the newer variants of Wi-Fi also enable newer applications or newer possibilities because they enable low latency or they enable more speed. So then that also means newer things could be done with that technology or that connectivity technology. So, and then from an enterprise point of view, so these are some of the things enterprises would start thinking now, because like then what would that mean if some of these updates need to happen in the coming years? Say, if we are deploying, say, a set of access points in an enterprise, in an environment this year or next year for that matter, which what we may choose, like say we could still definitely go with Wi-Fi 6. It's perfectly fine. We may choose Wi-Fi 7, but that might be costly. And Wi-Fi 8 is coming about soon, but that's still not there in a practical sense. But what we may need to put in place so that if and when those things come about, like if we need to upgrade and if there's a use case or need for that upgrade, how well we will be prepared to do that. So these are some of the things that we normally think about when we are thinking about sort of rolling new technology or coming sort of planning ahead for things that are coming soon. Then when we think about sort of mobile networking and mobile communications, we are going towards what's termed as 5G Advanced, which is sort of an enhancement to 5G networks, the existing 5G networks with more speeds or more uplink, downlink speeds. And then again, like optimizations around low latency. Again, those things can enable more use cases. This could be around industrial IoT. A lot of IoT applications can be cellular bound, so these things can be useful there. And it could also enable a lot of edge computing and sort of edge AI related applications. But that also brings about how do we integrate these things within a larger enterprise network environment. So again, not all of the things are going to be in a single type of networking. So there could be a mixed mode of LAN, WAN technologies, and how do we integrate that into an environment. So those are some of the things that could be the things that we think about when these things come into play. And as I sort of mentioned earlier, 6G is pretty far ahead in terms of it being a practical thing. But if any of you are going in sort of a research related career path, either in an industrial research environment or an academic research environment, 6G could be one of those things where you could get into. Because again, as an example, even before 5G was a practical thing, even almost like 5-10 years before 5G was a thing, research in 5G was already happening. Similarly, there's already research happening in 6G and even further ahead. So these things may not be applicable or relevant to you now, but in certain specific use cases, this might be something that interests you. One of the things that would be very, very relevant to many of you would be agentic NetOps. that is using AI agent in network operations. And as any entry-level networking technology professional, a lot of the things an agentic NetOps could do, a system that uses AI, could be complementing a lot of the things a networking technologist would do. But that also means there's this competition between AI and AI taking my job kind of a narrative. That's always a hyperbole. That's not always 100% reality. It shifts. AI definitely shifts the things that we do and we perform on a day jobs. But it also enables us to do different things. And being prepared and being aware of these things that are coming about. Say, for example, most of the vendors that currently provide NOC systems, network operation center systems, any sort of network management systems, almost all of them are adding different aspects of AI capabilities into those systems. But that doesn't mean all of these things are 100% fully automated. There's still a lot of humans involved. Human decision making is involved. So it's about how do we prepare ourselves to be aware of these things and being able to work along with these things. So that would be the main sort of consideration here. And this is where I would encourage a lot of sort of self-study if these things interest you. And this would be particularly around, say, looking at sort of industry-based sort of systems or the systems that are commonly used in the industry, like, say, for example, we'll go to some of the specific systems later in the course as well, just as an introduction. But any sort of common networking related vendor, looking at what's coming through them, say like the major ones like Cisco or any of the similar vendors, or even some of the major general vendors like Microsoft or AWS, Oracle, any of these players as well. Looking at what's coming through with them in terms of technologies, what are the things that they are doing, because how you go about understanding and learning about these things yourself would help you as well. Because these are some of the things that we normally wouldn't cover in a course like this, but things that we would study. Say, for example, that's what I do because that I have to do. But I think that's what you should do as well. One of the other areas would be around edge computing. Again, and one of the things, particularly interesting things that would be necessary from a networking point of view is that when we do more edge computing, that also means still those network nodes need to interconnect. And sometimes those nodes need to interconnect in a more efficient manner as well. So how do we enable those things would be an interesting sort of future to look into as well. So in a way, when we think about edge computing, it's going in the similar direction as sort of a lot of the distributed networking path, but now it does more, so to speak, and a lot more systems to system communications. And how do we enable that in our environments, in enterprise environments, and also all the different security considerations that come through or come about with that as well. And sort of a last topic or interesting topic would be post-quantum cryptography. Again, this is one of those things that has been on the radar for a long time. Post-quantum was a thing 20 years ago, it was a thing 10 years ago, and it is a thing now. So I don't know when these things will be real or happen. But having a thought thing, it's an area, it's an interesting area, particularly from a research point of view, yes. From a practical point of view, it's still significantly not there, but an area that nevertheless is interesting to sort of keep in mind. So that's just a few different areas that would be interesting for you. But particularly when you think about your career, your future career that you are going to embark soon, this would be around the hybrid workforces. So like people who work in different places, remote working and all those things, and all the different networking considerations that bring about. The multi-cloud environment is going to be another interesting aspect. Again, how do these things, how do we interconnect these things from a networking point of view, for performance, for speed, for sometimes latency, depending on our application, but also thinking about cost and stuff like that as well. And then sort of the thing that sort of comes about through software defined networks is around the disaggregation of network functions. So how do we think about what is a router and what is not a router? So is it an appliance? Is it a service? A lot of the cloud applications would have certain specific consideration there as well. So most of the fundamentals and the foundations of networking may not change drastically, but how we use them would change and is changing already. So how do we cater to that? How do we work in such an environment? Then the AI driven operation. So AI is here to stay, and AI is here to stay particularly in sort of operations environment like network operations or security operations. And in many ways, it is going to be an enabler. It is going to enable us to focus less on the noise and focus more on the actual problems. But then also, how do we work along with AI? I think that would be one of the key challenge here as well. And overall, one of the things that sort of encompasses all the IT related stuff is sustainability, because when we think about AI, it's particularly very unsustainable from a energy point of view these days, and many other aspects as well. But I think that would be an interesting area to look forward to as well. So that's about it for some just as an introductory sort of discussion today. It's just a random set of things. It might sound like, and it is a random set of things that we discussed today. But many of these things we will pick apart later in some of the later lectures as well. And similar to this or the different topics that we discussed today, this lecture series will also be very random in terms of the topics that we discuss. As I said, there will be a thematic sort of aggregation, so to speak, around networking and security. But that's just that. It's not going to be very strict, structured course. Any questions on the things that we discussed so far? So we will we'll quickly go into some of the stuff related to this course before we conclude for today. So first thing, assignments. So we'll have, so there'll be what is called individual labs, or essentially individual activities, assignments. Um, there will be possibly one group activity assignment, lab presentation, one of those things. And we would also have some in-class discussions. And the way the in-class discussions happen is like, it largely depends on attendance. And the reason why I may choose to do in-class discussions is if we have very bad attendance. We would still do that. So altogether, it would be, I think, 40 marks of the final 100. 40 would be from assignments and 60 from the. So there's the WhatsApp group for most communication as well. Alshan is the data course coordinator with the faculty department. So any generally, except today, as with any attendance required, and if there are particular advanced, so I would say like treat, and if you are the kind of person, tell your manager to do that. I'm fairly certain all. And if there's a valid excuse, but it's mainly so that like there is a record of list, and you join the course. Name is there. And it's a requirement from the faculty department as well. So I just send the list. Questions, and please ask questions, doubts in the lecture, following the lecture, in the